The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great, And the data shows that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. It's highly unlikely that's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand. I don't know anybody who's worried about inflation.
President Biden this afternoon saying he thinks we're at the peak of the crisis right now and that lower prices are on the way.
The inflation has everything to do with the supply chain. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
Welcome back, everybody, to Altcoin Daily. You subscribe for daily videos, everything going on in the world, how it relates to cryptocurrency, news, opinion, perspective. This is why you subscribe. It's no secret that inflation is hitting regular working people like you, like me, the hardest it ever has. The highest inflation in 50 years. Gas prices are up, food prices are up, consumer goods are up. What else has increased in price without increasing in value? So much, it seems like. This inflation, which is hurting all of us, particularly the working class, who caused it? Who's at fault? If you ask Joe Biden who's at fault for inflation, he'd say Putin, or capitalism, or maybe Trump. Joe Biden would never take responsibility for something like this.
I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
So who is really at fault for all of this inflation, which is hurting all of us?
Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else.
The government, Joe Biden, Washington, the Federal Reserve. What makes it worse is that they lied to us about all of this as it was happening. They said inflation wouldn't happen. They said it was transitory. Do you remember this?
I really doubt that we're going to see an inflationary cycle.
Most economic analysts believe that it will have a temporary or transitory impact.
The faster than expected increase in some of those prices is actually a good sign.
The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great.
This is something that will settle down.
Transitory.
And the data shows that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. It's highly unlikely that's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand. I don't know anybody who's worried about inflation.
Over the last couple of months, we actually saw it trended downward.
President Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, enthusiastically retweeted an economist who had said in part most of the economic problems we're facing, inflation, supply chains, et cetera, are high-class problems.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Well, the number one thing that the president can do is help get COVID under control. That we know is the root cause of inflation.
President Biden this afternoon saying he thinks we're at the peak of the crisis right now and that lower prices are on the way.
The inflation has everything to do with the supply chain. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the Trump tax cuts.
I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. You know, gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
Inflation is the fault of the money printer, is the fault of the government, is the fault of the Federal Reserve. It's the fault of unchecked power from the few dictating policy for the many, for us. Because they can print as much as they want, anytime they want, and we will be the last to know about it. Opting into Bitcoin takes power away from them. Bitcoin's hard, open, monetary policy cannot be debased, and the monetary policy is known by everyone, forever. Inflation is a problem. What's the real inflation numbers? They say 9.1%. Do you believe them? What if instead of talking about that 9.1% inflation, the media acknowledges the true rate of inflation, which is at least 18%. American workers are experiencing unprecedented declines in their real incomes, which is why record numbers have been forced to work multiple jobs to make ends meet. The real inflation rate is probably closer to 37%. 9.1% is the number they lie to us with. Groceries are up 12%, gas is up 60%, utilities up 40%. The average of those numbers is 37%, not 9.1. So these are the real inflation numbers that the government doesn't want you to know about. And even these numbers are probably actually lower than the actual real inflation rate. This could get real rough, real fast. So what are people doing? Inflation hitting us all around the world. What is the move? Well, short-term thinkers are running to the US dollar. That's why the US dollar has been going up in the short term. Long-term thinkers are running to Bitcoin. For instance, billionaire Thomas Peterffy owns Bitcoin and plans to buy more Bitcoin despite concerns that Bitcoin could become worthless or outlawed. You know how the media drums that narrative up. Well, he's not deterred. This is the story on why he's turning to Bitcoin in times like this. Billionaire Thomas Peterffy shared his outlook for Bitcoin and the U.S. economy in an interview with Forbes last week. If you're unfamiliar, Peterffy is the founder and chairman of the board of directors of Interactive Brokers, an online trading platform. His net worth is currently about $18.4 billion, according to Forbes' list of billionaires. By the way, Interactive Brokers offers cryptocurrency trading. Anyways, the billionaire said in January that it is prudent for investors to have 2% to 3% of their personal wealth in cryptocurrencies, just in case fiat currency, quote, goes to hell. In July last year, he revealed that he is holding some Bitcoin, stating that there's a small chance that this will be a dominant currency, so you have to play the odds. He told Forbes last week that he still believes in Bitcoin. He still believes it could become very valuable despite the recent crypto market sell-off. And he added that he is still holding some Bitcoin and plans to buy even more if the price dips down lower, stating he would buy more at $12,000. Because Bitcoin's looking real good. Bitcoin's monetary policy and inflation rate compared to the strongest fiat currency in the world, the US dollar, Bitcoin's looking real good. So let's talk about Bitcoin's monetary issuance. Let's talk about Bitcoin's monetary policy and inflation rate. Today, the annual inflation rate of Bitcoin is 1.72%. 1 year ago from today, the annual inflation rate of Bitcoin was 1.69%. Good luck getting this level of predictability from a central bank issued currency. And regular people like you, like me, are the ones that Bitcoin can help the most because it is inflation that affects us the most. The wealthy are the least affected by inflation because they hold very little fiat money relative to their investable assets, relative to their percentage of their net worth. Most of their net worth is investable assets. It's the lower income workers who suffer the most from this regressive stealth tax. We're talking about inflation. The affordability of goods as a percentage of your net worth is what defines how wealthy you are. So Bitcoin's 1.72% inflation rate looks even more appealing now. High inflation numbers from all around the world point towards rapid currency debasement. And when you take a look at all countries' inflation over 15%, the countries that this is happening to is staggering. I know. Well, if Bitcoin's such a good hedge against inflation, how come it's been going down? First of all, zoom out, think more big picture, think more long term. Second of all, people dunking on Bitcoin because it hasn't outperformed the dollar during high inflation are forgetting one important thing. Bitcoin will go back up. The dollar only goes down. So my question to you is, how can you afford not to own some Bitcoin at this point in time? Official inflation numbers are about 9.1%. If you save, like the government wants you to do, in an official savings account from your bank yields 1.5%. You're not winning in this scenario. And they continue to lie to our faces about it. There is no inflation. Inflation is transitory. Inflation is good for you. Inflation will only hurt the rich. Inflation is consumers' fault. Inflation is greedy businesses' fault. Inflation is Putin's fault. Inflation is backwards looking. Breadlines are a great way to meet people. Breadlines are a great way to meet people. So, if you have a long-term outlook like I do, Bitcoin needs to be part of your portfolio. That's my opinion, not financial advice. But when it comes to the cryptocurrency market in general, how can you not be excited? The genie is out of the bottle. Big things are happening in the space. Ethereum jumps 12% as the merge to proof of stake draws nearer. September 19th, mark your calendar. Ethereum is outperforming in the market this weekend after a 12% surge and is currently trading at around 1,355 for one Ethereum. And speaking of some of the blue chip crypto projects, even in a down market, Uniswap trading volumes are only down 8.7%, only 8% compared to previous quarters. So people are still opting in to use Uniswap. And by the way, Uniswap on Ethereum Layer 2, Polygon, Optimism were two networks which actually increased their trading volumes in Q2. So big things are happening in the space. This is why you subscribe to our channel, because we clue you in on a daily basis, things the mainstream media will never report to you. And if they do, they never provide you with any kind of context or perspective. So subscribe to the channel, join our team, smash the like button if you got value today. Check out our panel in Austin, Texas for Decentral Conference talking about Web3 in Hollywood. And with that being said, my friends, I will see you tomorrow.